Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going on a journey through a conflict that has really shaped the Middle East for decades, the Israel-Lebanon conflict.
Yeah.
You probably know some of the basics already, but we're going beyond just the headlines, to really understand the nuances and the lasting impacts of this conflict. Okay, let's unpack this. The human stories, the intricate web of alliances, and the effects that still continue to this day.
A very complex landscape, for sure. And understanding the historical context is really crucial here.
Absolutely. So let's rewind a little bit, not to the very beginning, but to a turning point, I think. The Israeli invasions of Lebanon in 1978 and 82, their aim was to push out Palestinian militant groups. But was that the whole story?
Well, those invasions were a pivotal moment, no doubt about it.
Hmm.
But to grasp their significance, you really need to consider the geopolitics at the time. The Cold War was raging,
Mm.
and the Middle East was this key battleground. Israel, backed by the U.S., saw the growing influence of Palestinian militant groups in Lebanon as a direct threat.
So it wasn't just about pushing out militant groups, but also about asserting their dominance in the region.
Exactly. And this move had very far-reaching consequences. The invasions led to a prolonged Israeli military occupation of southern Lebanon, which lasted until 2000.
That's over 2 decades of military presence. Wow.
I'm curious about the impact on the Lebanese people. What was it like to live under those conditions?
I mean, imagine a generation growing up under the constant shadow of occupation. Their daily lives were just intertwined with checkpoints, military patrols, and this ever-present threat of violence. This experience really shaped their identity, their political views, their very outlook on life.
It's hard to fathom the psychological toll that must have taken.
Absolutely. And it created, as you can imagine, a breeding ground for resentment and resistance. It's no coincidence that Hezbollah, the Lebanese Shia militant group, gained prominence during this period. They positioned themselves as defenders of Lebanon against Israeli aggression. Right. That brings us to another pivotal moment, the 2006 Lebanon War. Hezbollah launched rockets into Israel, sparking a month-long conflict with devastating consequences for both sides.
Yeah, this war was a turning point in many ways. It showed the growing military capabilities of Hezbollah, and just the complexities of fighting a non-state actor.
Yeah.
Embedded within a civilian population, the conflict led to, massive displacement, destruction. Entire villages were reduced to rubble.
The images from that war are still so vivid in my mind, those ghost towns left behind, the just sheer scale of the destruction. It really drives home the human cost of this conflict.
Yeah, and the scars of that war are still visible today, both physically and emotionally. The sporadic gunfire that you can still hear in some areas serves as a constant reminder of the fragile peace.
Speaking of peace, the UN played a significant role in trying to bring an end to the 2006 war. They issued Resolution 1701, calling for, among other things, disarmament and the withdrawal of Israeli forces. But has this resolution been successful? I mean, we've seen recent escalations in 2023 and 2024, which suggest a very fragile peace.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer, unfortunately, is not straightforward. While the resolution did lead to a ceasefire, the underlying issues that are driving this conflict remain unresolved. The challenges of disarming Hezbollah, a group so deeply embedded in Lebanese society and politics, are immense. And then there's the question of disputed territories, the ongoing tensions along the border, and the just lack of trust between all the parties involved.
So it's not just about signing a piece of paper. It's about tackling the deep-rooted issues that are fueling this conflict.
Exactly. And that requires a shift in mindset, a willingness to move beyond past grievances and engage in meaningful dialogue.
Let's delve deeper into that. The UN's role, the complexities of disarmament, and the challenges of achieving a lasting peace.
Yeah, the UN's role has been and continues to be very complex. On one hand, they've played a crucial role in mediating ceasefires and providing, humanitarian aid.
Right.
But on the other hand, some argue they haven't done enough to address the root causes of the conflict or hold parties accountable for violations.
That's interesting. It's like they're trying to put out a fire, but not addressing the fuel source. What are some of the criticisms that are leveled at the UN's involvement?
Well, some critics argue that the UN peacekeeping force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, just lacks the mandate and the resources to effectively enforce the ceasefire or prevent Hezbollah from rearming. Others point to the fact that Resolution 1701 called for the disarmament of all armed groups in Lebanon, not just Hezbollah, but there's been very little progress on that front.
Yeah, it sounds like a real political and logistical quagmire. And then there's the question of disputed territories, which adds another layer of complexity to all of this. Can you shed some light on that for us?
Sure. One of the key disputed areas is the Sheba Farms, a small piece of land on the border between Lebanon, Syria, and Israel.
Exactly.
Lebanon claims it as Lebanese territory, while Israel maintains it's part of the Golan Heights, which it captured from Syria in 1967.
Right.
This dispute has been a constant source of tension, a trigger for skirmishes.
It's incredible how such a small piece of land can become such a flashpoint. It really underscores how deeply intertwined these territorial disputes are with broader historical and political grievances.
Absolutely. And it highlights the challenges of finding any lasting solution. Any peace agreement would need to address these territorial disputes in a way that satisfies all parties involved, which is no easy feat.
Okay, so we've got the UN's role, the disarmament dilemma, disputed territories, and a whole lot of mistrust. Where do we even begin to untangle this knot? Is there any realistic path towards a lasting peace?
That's the question that has haunted diplomats and peacemakers for decades. And there's no simple answer. Some experts believe that a two-state solution similar to what's been proposed for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict could work. This would involve the creation of an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel, and hopefully easing tensions in the region as a whole.
Right. If the Palestinian issue were resolved, it could potentially create a more stable environment for negotiations between Israel and Lebanon. But are there other potential paths to peace?
Certainly. Another approach focuses on confidence-building measures between Israel and Lebanon.
Okay.
This could involve things like, economic cooperation, cultural exchanges, even joint environmental projects. The idea is to foster a sense of shared interests and interdependence, paving the way for more formal negotiations on those thornier issues.
So it's about building bridges, establishing trust, demonstrating the benefits of cooperation. Sounds like a long and arduous process.
It is. But there are some encouraging signs. We've seen some positive developments in recent years, such as the U.S.-brokered maritime border agreement between Israel and Lebanon in 2022.
Right.
This agreement, while limited in scope, demonstrated that it is possible for the two countries to find common ground on issues of mutual interest.
That's a glimmer of hope for sure. But it's clear that any lasting peace will require a multifaceted approach, addressing everything from those security concerns to historical grievances. I'm wondering, what role can ordinary people play in this process? Can individuals really make a difference in such a complex geopolitical conflict?
Absolutely. Never underestimate the power of citizen diplomacy. People-to-people initiatives can be incredibly effective in breaking down stereotypes, fostering empathy, and building bridges between communities. There are numerous organizations working on peace-building efforts in the region, bringing together Israelis and Lebanese, often through joint projects or dialogue sessions.
So, going beyond the political rhetoric and engaging on a human level, are there other concrete actions individuals can take?
Certainly, educating yourself about the complexities of the conflict is crucial. Go beyond the headlines, read books, watch documentaries, listen to podcasts like this one.
Right.
The more informed you are, the better equipped you'll be to engage in meaningful conversations and challenge those misconceptions.
That's a good reminder for all of us. We can't expect to contribute to solutions if we don't fully understand the problem. What about supporting organizations working on peace-building efforts?
That's another impactful way to get involved. There are many worthy organizations working on the ground, promoting dialogue, fostering reconciliation, and providing humanitarian assistance. Your financial contributions, no matter how small, can make a real difference in their work.
It sounds like there are many ways for individuals to contribute even from afar, but I imagine the psychological toll of living in a conflict zone just can't be underestimated. How do people cope with this constant threat of violence, the uncertainty, the trauma?
It's an incredibly challenging reality.
Yeah.
Resilience is key.
Yeah.
People find ways to adapt, to find moments of joy and normalcy amidst the chaos. Community support plays a vital role, as does access to mental health services. But the scars of conflict run deep, and the psychological impact can linger for generations.
It's a stark reminder that peace is not just about the absence of war, but about healing, reconciliation, and creating a society where people can thrive, not just survive. Speaking of thriving, there's been a lot of discussion about the potential economic benefits of peace. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Imagine a Middle East where Israel and Lebanon, instead of viewing each other as threats, become economic partners.
Hmm.
The potential for trade, tourism, and technological collaboration is immense. Lebanon, with its beautiful coastline and rich cultural heritage, could become a major tourist destination. Israel, with its technological prowess, could share its expertise in areas like agriculture and water management.
It really paints a very different picture from the current reality. Are there any concrete examples of how economic cooperation could benefit both countries?
Absolutely. One area with huge potential is energy. The recent discovery of natural gas reserves in the eastern Mediterranean has opened up these new possibilities for regional cooperation. Israel and Lebanon could potentially collaborate on joint ventures to extract and export natural gas, creating jobs and boosting their economies.
So it's not just about peace for peace's sake. It's about creating a win-win situation where everyone benefits. It's about shifting from a zero-sum mentality to a collaborative approach.
Precisely. And that's a message that resonates with people across political divides. The desire for a better future, for economic prosperity and security transcends national boundaries.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the midst of conflict, there's always hope for a brighter future.
Yeah, it's a fascinating to consider how economics could really be this driving force for peace. Makes you realize that conflict isn't inevitable. There are alternative paths, and cooperation can be mutually beneficial. Exactly.
Yeah.
Those shared economic interests can create these powerful incentives for cooperation. It's like that old saying, if you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to trade with them. When countries are economically intertwined, they really have a vested interest in each other's stability and prosperity.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a lot harder to justify conflict when your economies are so interdependent. But shifting gears a little bit here, I've been thinking about the cultural and social dimensions of this conflict. We've talked about the political and economic aspects, but what about just the human element? How do people from such different backgrounds with such different narratives and experiences find common ground?
That is a crucial question. And it's really where things get interesting. Despite those deep divisions and all that historical baggage, there are remarkable examples of cultural exchange and bridge building happening between Israelis and Lebanese. There are joint art exhibitions, musical collaborations, even culinary exchanges where chefs from both sides come together and create these dishes that fuse their culinary traditions.
That's incredible. It shows that art, music, and food can really transcend those political boundaries and create a space for human connection. It's a reminder that we have more in common than we often realize.
Exactly. And these cultural exchanges can be incredibly powerful in breaking down stereotypes and fostering empathy. When you get to know someone on a personal level, share a meal with them, listen to their stories, it becomes harder to see them as the enemy. You start to see the human face behind the conflict.
It's like that saying, don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes, or in this case, shared a plate of hummus with them.
Precisely. And these cross-cultural interactions can often lead to some surprising discoveries. People realize that they actually share similar hopes and dreams, fears and anxieties. They discover that they both value family, community, and a sense of belonging.
Right. It's just a powerful reminder of our shared humanity. It's so easy to get caught up in the political rhetoric and forget that we're all just people trying to navigate this complex world.
Absolutely. And recognizing that shared humanity is really essential for building a more peaceful future. It's about moving beyond just that us versus them mentality and embracing a more inclusive, interconnected worldview.
I love that. It's a message of hope and possibility. It reminds us that even in the most kind of intractable conflicts, there's always potential for human connection and understanding.
It is. And it's a reminder that peace isn't just something that happens at the government level. It's something that we create in our everyday lives through our interactions with each other, through our choices, through our willingness to listen and learn from those who are different from us.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Israel-Lebanon conflict, I'm left with a sense of both the immense challenges and these inspiring possibilities. It's a complex situation, no doubt, but it's not hopeless. There are people working tirelessly for peace, there are these cultural initiatives fostering understanding, and there's a growing recognition that cooperation is truly the only way forward.
Well said. And I think the key takeaway for our listeners is this. Don't underestimate your own power to make a difference. Stay informed, engage in dialogue, support peace-building efforts, and never lose sight of our shared humanity.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you a new perspective on this complex conflict and inspired you to be part of the solution.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, peace is a journey, not a destination. It requires constant effort, but the rewards are immeasurable.